So the first thing that you see when you get into the web client in this new version is that it has a slightly different look and feel. So we have worked a little bit on the UI. And yeah, as an initial comment, the demonstration today is going to focus almost exclusively on the web client, but I'm going to point out all the features that are available in both the web client and the Windows client. So one of the first things we did was regarding the Project Explorer. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Project Explorer. When clicking on it, you don't, well, it opens like this now, and it starts out with having a graphical representation of your design control items and how they relate. So this is an extra feature that we can add to configurations, how to depict these kind of relationships between design control items in different sections. The default look and feel is, as you remember, more like this. And if this is something that you would like to have in your configuration, you contact us and we'll help you set that up. So in this top example here, for example, we can see user needs, design input requirements, and design outputs, and how they relate to verification and validation test cases. And this is also the entry point to the chapter view. So if I click on this box here, the user need box, it takes me straight to the user need chapter view. We can also see a progress bar here, and the progress bar indicates the consistency coverage that I'm sure you're all familiar with regarding the items of this type. So for quicker access, we also added all these types in a list in the navigation bar. So you don't have to enter inside the Project Explorer every time you want to move to a different chapter view of a new type. Another thing that we added was breaking out the file type and added it as a separate entry here, because files are slightly different than your other design control items. So you have speedy access now to all your file items and the documents that they contain. And as you can see here, we've added a lot more coloring to differentiate between the types, so you can more quickly see what kind of type we're talking about. And this coloring is done then on the basis of the category, so the design control category. And again, if you would like to see more colors showing up in your UI, you can contact us and we'll help you set that up. In the dashboard, we have made room for a new widget, the risk summary widget, so you can display the risk summary now up front in your dashboards. And if I move now into the chapter view that you all know, which has contained all the chapters and all the design control items, we have added 3 quick access buttons for adding items, adding chapters, and rearrange items. So these are the exact same functions that you can find up here, like add and add chapter and rearrange. So these are just the most common operations in this view that we have broken out into these quick access buttons. We've also made an update to the batch changes, or the update multiple items. So if you have already worked with this update multiple items type, you know that you can then in one single action set the attribute value of a given attribute in all the items that you've selected. And you select the attribute you want to change in this dropdown. And now there are 2 more entries in here. And the first one is changing fonts. So you can now batch change fonts in a number of items with a single action. And this is, of course, then applicable to rich text fields and table attributes. So you select the available rich text fields, the font name, and the font size. And that will then update the font name and font size for all those items for that particular attribute or those particular attributes. The second action is replacing words. So if you have a word that you want to exchange that appears in many, many items, and you want to do this in a single action without having to go and open, like search and open and manually change that, you can replace words in batch mode, meaning again, the attributes that contain text, which are the plain text attribute, the rich text attribute, and the table attribute, can then be selected here, like title and description, and then you can type in the search word you're looking for and the replace term and include the match case. So that's some welcome updates to the batch change, also upon popular request. Regarding setting traces, we have made it a bit easier setting up quick access to the types that are specified as generatable types in your configuration. So instead of having to go through the trace to and then select the type and then select the items, you now have quick access to trace to the types that are most likely to be the candidates for outgoing traces here. And the same goes for generation. In the test run explorer, we have added the progress bar from the test run itself in the test explorer list. So it gets a better overview, a quicker overview to see what in what state the test runs are at a given moment. So you don't have to venture into the test run itself to figure that out, but it's here up front. We have also made some usability changes when it comes to the gap form. So if I make a change here, as you can see here now, the change comment was automatically populated with the latest change comment that I have entered. Some of our customers are not the greatest fans of this gap form dialog, having to enter change comments for every change. We think that in the industry that we work in, change control is very important and should be kept. So therefore, we have been pretty adamant about having this gap form. But on popular request, again, we have now added an additional feature available in the project settings, which is called allow automatic change comments. And this means that you can enter a change comment here and switch this feature on. And that means that every time you save an object, the gap form and the change comment dialog will not be displayed, but this change comment here in the project settings will be automatically applied to that change. So you will still have the revision increase. You will still in the project history have a change comment being associated with a revision change, but you don't have to type it in yourself. And I agree, this might be handy in the initial state of some projects when you're still in like a research state and when change management might not be so strict. So this is something that is available in both clients and you can use it as you see fit. We have also added an additional workflow action. As you know, you can configure aligned element for workflows. So depending on state changes, aligned elements will do things like sending emails, generating objects, and the new workflow action we have here is unlock objects, because there is already a corresponding action called locking objects. So at a particular state change, for example, if you set a file to release, for example, a workflow can be configured that actually locks all items that are part of that file document. So if the file contains requirements, you set the file to release, then all the requirements automatically get locked, which then would indicate that we don't expect anybody to update these requirements when the file is released. And of course, we therefore also added this corresponding action, unlock items. So if you put the state on the file back to draft, all those requirements would then be unlocked, for example. And there's also two new inconsistency types that have been added. One is exclusively valid for file objects, and it checks if a file contains items that have not been reviewed. So if a document contains an item that has not been reviewed, the file will show up inconsistent. And the second inconsistency rule we've added is similar to the already existing inconsistency rule that checks if an item is part of a document. And this is somewhat stricter. It requires the item not only to be part of a document, but to be part of a document that has been electronically signed. So it goes one step further, not only checking if the item is part of a document, but also check whether that document has been electronically signed. Then we have put in some significant effort into the review process. We have received some good feedback from the community regarding potential improvements in our feedback, in our review loop. And as you're familiar with, we have these kind of reviews. And if you have performed the review, you should be very, you know this kind of form. So we have all the attributes, we have the review team, we have the objects under review, and we have the issues associated with the review. So some of the feedback that we got was like, it's hard for people to work in this in parallel, because if you want to make changes to this review, you need to open the review for edit, and then it's kind of locked for you and nobody else can review it. So what we've done now is adding a new view. So it's like an additional view for the review that is called the feedback view. And that feedback view is accessible either from this action button over here, like add review feedback. Or if you look at your assigned items, assigned reviews, you will find this big green button here. And you can click on that one, which will now display the feedback view. And the feedback view looks like this. It starts out with some information about the review itself, and then you have a list of the objects under review. And there are several interesting things to note here. So as you can see here on the left side, we have the IDs of these verification test cases in this case, and we have these icons showing up. And there are three types of icons. It's the green one, it's the yellow one, and it's the red one. So green means that this verification test case has already been reviewed in a previous review, and it has not been changed ever since. So you can see this upfront when you perform your review that, okay, this has already been reviewed. Maybe I don't need to pay too much attention to this. The yellow means that this is a new item, and it has never been reviewed. And the red icon means that this is an item that has been reviewed, but it has been updated since the last review. We can also click on this item, on this icon, in order to get the gap form to show exactly what has happened since the last review. We also have the possibility to take a look at associated inconsistencies with each item, which can be valuable input during the review. But most of all, the most important thing here is that each user now have the access to accept or reject each item under review. So if we're happy with this item as it is, we can click the accept button, which now makes a mark in this progress bar. And we can continue to inspect and accept or reject. So I continue to accept here. As you know, reviews can be fairly long and contain a lot of items. So if you want to break this up in several sessions, that's totally doable. And when you come back to this view, you can click on Find Next to find out where you left off. So it automatically takes you to the place where you left off. Now, should you not be happy with a particular item, you can reject it. So you click this Reject Item. And you're now required to, in a comment, explain why this is not okay. So this is a comment that is now associated with this item, and everybody can see it. And we can also see here that this little bubble turned yellow, indicating that somebody has made a comment here. So other people can also accept or reject, and we'll see if there are comments. And once, if you agree then in your team that, yeah, in this threaded discussion of the comments that this is really a pressing matter and we should raise an issue for this and address this in our review changes, you can then promote this comment to an issue. So we actually create an issue based on a comment. And this issue is now associated with this test case. So I can continue now to accept and reject these items, add comments, add issues. And once I'm done, here I can say accept all on all the remaining items. I have access to the I performed a review to signalize to my team leader that I have performed all my action and given all my feedback. And if we go back to the review view now, we can see that the team leader can easily identify the progress of each of the reviewees. And of course, we will find the issues that we have created and their association down here as we expect.
We have a new feature also in combination with this review functionality in the client, that we can highlight the state of items in a Word document. And the way to go about doing that is that if you have opened a Word document in Align Animals, this works in the web and in the Windows client. There's a little button that says that if we can toggle a selected inconsistency, and it's been highlighted in the document. So what I've done is that I've selected the inconsistency type not reviewed. This is also default if you have selected nothing before, and you toggle and the document gets colored with this red background color, and you can see which objects are currently not reviewed that are part of this document. So if I turn this off, get rid of the toggle and select a different inconsistency, we can see what's the state with that. So this is the original state of the document. So if I now go down and say I would like to see all the objects or items in my document that has the inconsistency trace missing, I can just toggle that after having done my selection, and we can see what it looks like. Next thing I would like to show is that we've also been working a lot on the user management. So if you have the web application in place, there's user management on top of all the project centric user management available. And this works like following. So you have to be a web admin to be able to access this view. And if you do, you can see a lot of nice things in one go in the user management from the web client. So here I've filtered, just show me all the users that are involved in something called demo projects. And now we're filtering basically all of the columns containing this data. It would be possible to assign a new project to one user directly from this location here. So I could assign the project template test. And if I save, it's going to ask me what is the default user group that I would like to assign to that project. And if you have multiple projects assigned at the same time, if there's a common user group, it's displayed only once. Otherwise, you have to do the selection per project. Pretty simple. One additional thing is that you can also see what users are currently active in one of the projects. And I think that's a good thing, especially for maintenance. You can see someone actually currently logged in, and this only takes into consideration if they're logged in using the web application. So if someone is also in a project using the Windows application, this cannot be spotted from this view, unfortunately. But we can also look at a bit more detailed information. If we click on the show project information, we would get the list of exactly what user groups and things that are assigned. So this test user here, Anders2, is assigned to the following projects and has the following user groups in these projects. The next thing I would like to show you is that we've also added a new integration for GitLab. We have a number of existing integrations already for Azure DevOps, Jira Track, GitHub, Gemini, Redmine Force, but now we also have an integration to GitLab. And if there's any more needs out there, just let us know. The GitLab integration is pretty much similar to to what you've seen for other projects. So here I've listed all the issues from GitLab within aligned elements. They can also be created from aligned elements. For example, as part of a test case execution, I can display the information in here. I can see if it's been traced from some existing object or not. And I can go to the original by clicking on the link, and it would open up my project in a separate tab. And I can continue working in GitLab as I'm used to. And this goes for basically all of the integrations with external issue management systems. So here I'm just continue to work here, and the aligned elements will have a live link to that data. We're not storing anything. We're just providing a link to that data. Okay. We also have an integration with a new external system, that's Subversion. It's a version management system. We had an existing already with Enterprise Architect that some of you may already know, but now we've added Subversion to this, so it's possible to example, sign an internal aligned elements issue with a revision in the version management system if you want to. Another little feature that we have added is the possibility of configuring the email content. So we have an additional configuration possibility. It's a little XML file. I've just done a screenshot of an example here, and we have a number of standard emails that the system can send, and you have the possibility of changing the content of these emails, either just by doing like plain text and including parameters that are being set by the application to make it a bit more generic, or also the possibility of actually generating proper HTML emails with the logo and graphical design and whatever. If you want to make the mails look a bit more, I don't know, according to your organization, or include additional instructions that are applicable to the way you work with the tool. And last but not least, I would like to talk a bit about how to upgrade. We have, for the Windows application, it's pretty straightforward. You basically go through installing the new version on all the clients. For the web application, it's a couple of more steps, although they only have to be done by your IT responsible persons. And we have a decent installation instruction, and especially when it comes to just upgrading, it's just a few steps, and it should be done in a matter of, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes. So it's not a big thing. The important thing is afterwards that you actually go through the projects and perform a force reload, and that means that we're actually upgrading the data repository in the background to be compatible with the new version. It's also important to understand that if you have both web and Windows applications in place, that you do the upgrade for both of these at the same time. So upgrading to a new version means that you cannot read the data with an old version, or it's not safe to read the data with an old version. Maybe one note here is that we've added a bit more restrictive template checking in Service Pack 4 of version 2.5, and that means that some template sets may fail to load because there's a little inconsistency in the way the templates have been defined, and that's maybe something to keep an eye open for when you actually perform the application upgrade. So the project may not load, and you have to look in the log file and see what the reason for that is. But it's usually very simple things, and we think it's worthwhile to actually have that highlighted than to keep the error in there for all eternity. Installing the web application on a brand new system is a couple of more steps, but we also have a detailed instruction, and I think the most important part there is that it need to be run under safe conditions, meaning that it's running on HTTPS, it needs a certificate, and there's a couple of prerequisites that are mentioned in this installation manual that you can request from us. And that's something that your IT could prepare before you actually get going with the proper installation procedure. And but once again, it's not a huge thing. We are happy to assist as well. But the full installation probably takes around 1 hour or similar if you have these things prepared. So certificate, some naming of the server, like a domain name, and very importantly, some mail account that the application can work with, because most of the user management is relying upon a functioning mail account that the server can use to send mail confirmations and things like that to new users in the system. Okay, that's all I had to say about the new features and upgrading. Is there anything you know, that we said that maybe have inspired you, or something you've been thinking about for a long time? I leave the floor open to questions.
So in that case, we'll cut the meeting short here. Thank you everyone for attending. And please know that you're always welcome to contact us if you have new features that you want to see in Aligned Elements, or changes that you want to be made. Again, if you don't have the web server / web client installed yet, and that is something that you would like to try out, then reach out to us, and we'll assist you in organizing that.
It's always a possibility as well to just take a spin on our demo server. There's a little registration form on our website where you can just go in and try out the web application and see if it's something that you would like to go for within your organization. So that's the easiest thing, just to get in, you know, a little feel around the application and see if it's what you're looking for.
So this webinar will be has been recorded and will be published on our website and on our YouTube channel. So it will be available there if you want to send it on to any colleagues that you think should see it. That's all for us. Have a great day.